You already know what we're talking about today, how you can get along with anyone, so let's jump into it right now. I'm gonna come to you with problem, solution, and outcome. So let's go ahead and talk about the problem. So we're talking about how you can get along with anyone. What could be reasons for not being able to get along with anyone? Maybe people chronically misunderstand you, or maybe you're struggling to get ahead socially because of awkwardly offending people. There might be a few things you just need to tweak to really turn this in your favor. So let's try to dig into that a little bit, because you might actually feel like you have a lot to offer, but it's like you accidentally end up offending people, or people misinterpret you, or whatever the case is. It could be that you didn't have a great example to follow when you're growing up, maybe, to kind of see like, how do I engage the social landscape? But don't feel bad, it's understandable, and that's why I'm here to help. So let's go ahead and talk about the solution. So we're gonna talk about something I'm gonna call the relationship safety diagram. It's really a Venn diagram that comes together. One circle pretty much represents you. The other circle represents another person, anyone that you're engaging with. So as you know, in a typical Venn diagram, you have an area in the right circle and an area in the left circle. The area on the left circle is going to represent your interest. The area in the right circle is going to represent the other person's interest. And the area in the intersection between both circles is going to represent your shared interest. The key thing about building relationships is that you want to be able to focus on your shared interests that you have in common, objectives that you're trying to achieve together. Right there in that intersection, it's really the safe zone when it comes to building new relationships, finding new friends, and anything in between. It's very beneficial for school, also super beneficial for work as well. It's a trustworthy and reliable approach to use when it comes to building new relationships. The more you talk about their interests, and if you don't share those interests, then there's more room for a disconnect. And the more you talk about your interests and they may not share those interests, then there's room for misunderstanding, there's room for all different types of things to take place, and you may not really be able to benefit the best from that relationship than you could have. So now let's talk about a few do's and don'ts when it comes to this particular approach. Number one, don't cross the boundary. It's a boundary for a reason. With different people, you might find that shared interest is a little bit wider, and then with other people, you might find that shared interest is a little bit smaller. And sometimes it's even so small that you might even have only one thing in common, and that can happen. And that's something that you can acknowledge, realize, and accept. Another thing you don't want to do is to ride the boundaries of the border, okay? You don't want to be a borderline, always trying to push the envelope to see what you can get away with. That's not an ideal approach for a positive relationship. You're just going to make everyone feel uncomfortable, and when other people do it to you, it makes you feel uncomfortable as well. So respect the boundaries. You also need to understand that just because you understand this approach, that not everyone is going to understand this approach. So there will be people who don't respect the boundaries, and there will be people who actually try to cross the boundaries. And there will also be people who you have absolutely no shared interests with. So instead of a small sliver, you'll actually be two completely different circles. In that particular situation, you have to be more objective. The reason that you're both together, if it's work, you're focused on work. You're focused on the objectivity of why you're together in the first place. If it's school, you're focused on the objectivity of the projects you're working on together. You're gonna have to deal with that as well. And sometimes you'll deal with people who will ride that border, as we discussed earlier. You may have to dynamically engage with the different entities that you encounter and kind of guide them indirectly in order to prevent them from crossing the boundary or prevent them from putting the relationship in an awkward space. As we mentioned in a previous video, there are many entities that ride these bodies we call humans. Nothing to do with race, nothing to do with gender, everything to do with your energy signature. The key here is to dynamically dynamically engage with each individual and to respond accordingly. The relationship safety diagram is a really good general approach to help you deal with most people, but also remember to be dynamic with the different people that you encounter. In the end of it all, you want to gravitate towards people who also respect these boundaries in the same way that you do, and to remain objective when it comes to those who have a lack of respect for social etiquette. So now we've talked about the problem, we've talked about the solution, so now let's go ahead and talk about the outcomes of some of that. So when you approach things this way, you'll start to find that you have a lot of common ground, and you'll make a lot more friends with people who you may not have thought you would have had that common ground or friendship with. You'll also grow very confident in your abilities to interact with others. And very importantly, you'll find that other people grow very comfortable around you. This will help you develop a very desirable reputation for yourself around your peers. And you'll become the topic of discussion when it comes to consideration for, let's say, leadership, promotion, responsibility amongst your group. Doing this approach will definitely lead to a large amount of trust within your group. Your path to success will be much easier and faster than another person who might be more problematic, combative, and argumentative. So that's all the doc has for you today. Remember, the world is dangerous, so protect your energy. Trust me, I'm a doctor. I'll see you next time.
Looking back through the time, we've shared a lot of tears, but baby, don't give up. We're gonna persevere.